The ancient Egyptians used to say that if you say a man's name, he is alive. I take this opportunity to say Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Voltaire, so many great minds. I would be here forever if I tried to just say their names. But this is the secret to immortality. I learned this a long time ago. The secret to immortality is embrace these beliefs that are eternal. Part of the hero's journey, this is what makes the hero's journey so powerful, it makes you become immortal. How do you become immortal? You think and preach and teach the ideas that were taught by Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. These people knew about the diet of ethics. Read the Diet of Ethics by Howard Williams. Some of you people pushing meat, you need to understand what you're missing. What the people long ago with these great minds understood, that you are what you eat. And there's a relationship between what you eat and how you act. And yet, some people can act apparently pretty good, but how do you know how bad they really are? And then those other people, my God, people just don't understand how profound this is. And if you really want to be immortal, my friends, study these great minds, understand what they were about, embrace their beliefs and philosophies that are still alive today, which makes them alive, and that means you're going to be alive. Jump on the Socrates bandwagon, the Tolstoy bandwagon, the Voltaire bandwagon. These guys are still alive because what they believed and thought is still alive. And if you study them and you understand them and they become you, then you too will become immortal. Saying a man's name isn't enough. Got to believe in what that man said and what that woman said and what that child said. Little children should know more than what the average person knows. And that's why I say over and over, society attacks early when the individual is helpless. Every 7-year-old child has already been taught how to make the same mistakes their parents taught over and over and over and over. So it's not that it's not that complicated. Knowledge of how to live is the most valuable knowledge in the world. And you can learn it in a matter of moments. It's not complicated. You got to know how to live. You have to realize we have a species-specific diet and we're in such a state of denial it's not even funny. Makes you wonder if we're ever going to be able to break that hunger spell where we feel hunger down here instead of up here to water into the throat. Most people have never heard that, can't even relate to it. But that's what Plato meant. Whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. We're into this hunger spell. This is a morbid sensation down here. It's a withdrawal symptom from eating the wrong food. True hunger is a water into the throat. And how many of y'all experience that? If you still feel it down here, you're still eating some wrong food, which is why you crave it. It's why you have the withdrawal symptom, don't you see? So the knowledge I'm talking about that makes one immortal is simple knowledge of how to live. Knowledge that we are what we eat. And that determines everything else about our lives. And yet you can see a wide variety of how other people respond to this. And you think, well, it can't be causing all these problems because these people act so differently. Well, we're different. We all manifest symptoms differently. It's just like taking a drug, right? Take any drug on the market, they're all going to come with about a dozen side effects. Do you know anybody that gets every one of them? Might be, some that do. But most don't, do they? This illustrates how one bad thing can cause a whole lot of different symptoms. And what I've realized is we're only making 5 main mistakes that are literally causing hundreds of thousands of problems. And people don't understand that the first mistake is what led to the other 4. And that correcting that mistake is the most important thing there is to it. There's no other thing we can improve on that's going to get rid of hundreds of thousands of problems. Think about it. Think about it. If we didn't make the first mistake, we wouldn't be making the second, although some do, and it's disgusting to think of eating an animal raw. But it's disgusting to think about cooking it also. It's disgusting to think about eating anything cooked when you understand what it does. You have to hate fire when it comes to putting our food in it. Puts us under the hunger spell. Makes us become addicted. We're being deceived by this false hunger in our belly. And if we didn't make that first mistake, we wouldn't be eating the animals. We wouldn't be eating plants. We're not biologically adapted to eat from that agricultural revolution, which didn't happen that long ago. Can't look back at history and say, oh, look at all the great civilizations that lived on that diet, but that only goes back on a football field 6 inches. 100 yards, 300 feet, 3 feet in a yard, 12 inches in a foot, 6 inches. It's a fraction of our existence. And if we weren't making those 3 mistakes, we wouldn't be processing the foods, we wouldn't be using chemicals. I'm always amazed when someone says, oh, cooking is not that important. There's other things we can do that are more important. It's not the only thing we need to do. Well, of course, it's not the only thing we need to do. So a whole lot of things we have to do in addition to correcting that first mistake. But if we don't put that on our top of our list, in fact, if we don't put all 5 of these on the top of our list of mistakes to correct, we're wasting our time. Oh, but John, I got a horrible problem over here. I'm addicted to these drugs. You're addicted to the wrong food, man. Yes, you want to look at all the problems you got and correct those mistakes. You're saying, boy, I'm an alcoholic, got to correct that mistake. If you don't correct the other 5 mistakes, especially the cooking of the food, you're going to always struggle trying to correct that mistake. That's what Tolstoy meant about the first step in that great book I mentioned earlier. The Ethics of Diet. Hundreds of people are in this book. Some of the greatest minds in the world had reflected on life and said, look what we've noticed. The ethics of diet. You are what you eat. Why do we have war, crime, and violence? Why do we have a dark side to our behavior? Why do we have psychopaths rule the asylum? Can't be that simple, but yet it's so profound, it has to be. It has to be. Read the Ethics of Diet. Read the first step that Tolstoy wrote as the preface to this book. He translated that book into Russian. He loved it so much. Wrote a 25-page essay. I did a video on the first step to paradise. I'll put a link down below. Where I took that real long 25-page essay and condensed it down into 6 words, and I just put it on my tape recorder and let you hear it. So part of that 15, 20-minute video or so is just maybe 5 minutes of me condensing down his 25-page essay, where Tolstoy pointed out the problem we face as a species. We're gluttons. We have no self-control. First step, we got to gain back control. In his days, it was a solid food vacation on water. My first step, a solid food vacation on Jesus. We got to take back control, and that's what taking a solid food vacation does. It allows us to control the things that are controlling us. So according to Tolstoy, great mind, very well known, but he wanted to be more known for his views on ethics and religion than he did his other works, because he understood the connection. He read that great book with all these, like 185 different brilliant people that all said, look, eating meat's making these people bad. We pay attention. We can see it. Why can't you? You're under the spell. Don't you see? Read the first step. Again, Tolstoy points out the reason why we're suffering is because we have no control, no self-control. Self-renunciation, as the Christians would say. Self-control, as others might say. He said we got to gain back control. It's the very first step. We're on the first floor of a building. It's the evil side of life. The better side of life is way up there. Got to go up these stairs. So, again, we got to correct these problems. You got to hit the first step. The first step addresses those 5 main mistakes. And what Tolstoy pointed out, a problem that so many well-intended people have, is they focus on those higher steps, the higher virtues, not realizing why it's such a struggle for everyone, because no one pays attention to the first step. And he says you can't skip steps. So yeah, you can fantasize all you want with those higher steps, those higher virtues, but if you don't have any control over yourself, you're going to keep the species of ours in hell, where the magnitude of suffering is enough to make you go mad if you contemplate on it and if you truly understand it. Have you ever thought about it? I do all the time. That's why I come out here and start screaming sometimes. Because I'm passionate and I think about this and I feel it. How many people right now are in pain? How many people are dying right now of starvation? Now! 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 That's how many times? Think about that. 40,000 children a day die on purpose on this planet because we have sick people controlling everything. How can we allow that to go on? Because we're disconnected, we're sick, we're out of control, eating the wrong food. Read Tolstoy's The First Step. Read The Ethics of Diet, you crazy people want to eat meat, getting tricked and fooled and thinking the paleo diet's the way to go and ketosis. Just did a video, taped it yesterday, and it'll be uploaded when I get back, or published when I get back, where I explain some of the stupid arguments people give for using a ketogenic diet. It's a cruel and sinful thing you do when you take an animal's life, when your health doesn't depend on it, and if you do it, it's going to ruin the environment and ruin you. And it's going to darken the dark side of our behavior. First mistake we made, created the dark side of our behavior, destroyed the sunlight energy we store in the nucleus of our cells. That's called a biophoton, coherent sunlight energy that allows us, ourselves, to communicate to everything. It allows us to feel one with everything. That's why we suffer. That's why correcting the fall of mankind is so important. That's why not cooking our food is so important. We destroy cellular communication. We destroy our sixth sense. It should be around 83,000. We're down about 1 to 23,000. Not if you stop cooking your food. Not if they're organic. Organic supposedly has 5 times as many of these biophotons as does conventional food. So we're losing 83% when we're buying the conventional stuff. But when we cook it, we destroy the life force, the sunlight energy that's faster than the speed of light by 100%. That is the fall of mankind, my friends. It's not complicated. And that's what the hero's journey is all about, is helping other people realize the role they play. People don't think one person can make a difference, but that's every time anything's ever been done, that's why it's being done. It's that small percentage that helps us get to the tipping point where people are going to want to jump on board because they finally see enough people doing it. We're not there yet, but that's what my channel's all about. Gotta reach that 100th monkey, the tipping point, that critical mass, where everyone's just going to say, God, I'd be a fool not to be doing this. In fact, when I first found this knowledge long ago, I thought my life was going to be so exciting, getting everybody to do this. And man, you talk about a hard sell. And it boggles your mind when you think about how can the best product in the world be a hard sell? What's this going to do for you? Well, let me see, it's going to increase the quality of your life. It's going to increase the quantity of your life. Well, I don't want to live longer. Well, yeah, not the way most people are living now. I wouldn't want to live another 10 years looking at the elderly in my country or any other country. You guys are failures of living. You never learned how to live. You never questioned what your parents taught you. And what do we still do? We keep teaching our parents the same mistakes over and over and over. It's a hard cycle to break, but the exciting part of it only takes one generation to turn everything around. Think about what that means. One generation. If we could realize how important these biophoton levels are, we would enact one law above all laws. We all had to have a minimal level. Our leaders and even criminals would have to have an optimum level. And that as of a certain year, every child had to be born at a certain level and make sure it was maintained. And never allowed to make the mistake that will allow it to lower. Because no one has a right to bring the rest of us down, and that's what ultimately happens. We are all one. No man's an island. You can't come out of Plato's cave and think you're free anymore because everyone else is down in the cave. That's why Plato's cave, the philosopher king, the only people who are qualified to lead us are the ones who know how to get out of the cave of ignorance. It's just knowledge of how to live. It's not complicated, except we made mistakes and created another group of needs. Now we have to have knowledge of how to adapt. A little more complicated than it should be. But we got to start with knowledge of how to live because that's what we're missing. We got to correct these 5 main mistakes and correct all the mistakes we're making, but we got to put those on the top of the list, just like we got to take the first step in Tolstoy's first step before we do anything else. If you're going to try to quit smoking, if you're going to try to quit drinking, if you're going to try to quit any type of thing you shouldn't do, and you're still eating cooked food, you're a fool. No, I'm not saying all you got to do is eat raw food, all of them, boom, it's gone. No, you got to do everything else, but I'm telling you that's how important these 5 mistakes are. Again, we are what we eat. And isn't it fascinating how most of us don't want to scrutinize that well enough to really understand its ramifications? What else could affect us as much as food affects us? Nothing. Sure, that sun could disappear. That would be pretty devastating to me, wouldn't it? How about the air? That could change drastically. I could die within minutes without air. Water, that's a problem too. Food, I can go for a while. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to get to here. We've got to be the best that we can be. We have to look at all of our essential needs. Not just one. We've got to look at all of them. And do the best we can to make sure we're satisfying those basic needs. It's based on the law of cause and effect. All living systems are subject to the law of cause and effect, just like all matter is subject to Newton's law of motion, the law of action and reaction. Action, reaction, cause, and effect. Everything we do affects us, and those effects accumulate and are reflected in what we got. And that's what we got. What do we got? We got a sick world. We got a sick world that preys upon ourselves. We have a sick world that rescues two businesses that shouldn't be allowed to exist. As a philosopher, I try to keep my pulse on society. Sometimes, many times, it's very hard for me to really know where people are at, because I've been so far outside the box for so long, and I was able to get out of it long ago anyway before I found this knowledge. But that's made me have to study you guys a little bit in ways I normally wouldn't want to do. Which means I watch more TV than I want to, but I'm specific to what I look at because I can learn things from it. It makes me think and put things in perspective. And two shows that I'm thinking of right now would be Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Rescues, and then a show I didn't even know existed until a couple weeks ago, and I've been watching some of it because it again makes me think about things, and that's John Taffer and his show Bar Rescue. And both the guys are identical. They both are high red, yellow personalities. They're out there screaming and yelling. This makes some people's jobs miserable, my friends. I've done about a dozen videos on personalysis. It was used as a management tool to make sure you put the right people in the right job. You understood how to motivate the right people. And this test will say that red yellows make good managers. Red yellows, reds talk, physical energy. Reds act, they do have physical energy. Yellows talk, they're friendly. So red yellows are extroverts. They many times hit management positions. But these are the overbearing type of people. They yell and scream. They like to boss people around. Gordon Ramsay, John Taffer, typical high red yellow bosses that come screaming and yelling at you. And the thing is that not everybody wants to be managed the same way. In fact, that will turn a lot of people off. And the man who turned me on to this Bob Wood, this personality test, he's the guy who turned me on to raw food back in 1930. If you haven't heard me talk about the personality test, look in my description box below, and you'll see I've done about a dozen videos on this. And Bob understood this backwards and forwards. He taught it the last 10 years of his career at Dresser Industries, and I knew him for about 5 years, and every day we would talk about it. So I really have a good education on it. I really understand how it works, and he was always going crazy when he would watch basketball or baseball or football. Not so much football because you don't see it as much, but especially in basketball where you can see the coach yelling at everybody, and he'd be screaming, going, "That's not how you motivate that personality type." So what we have with those two shows, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, is it should be illegal to have restaurants and bars. Think about it. It should be illegal to sell cooked food. It should be illegal to sell anything that's going to harm us, literally. And we can't even wrap our brain around that now, but down the road, that's where we should be. If there's only one law, and we had to have a minimal biophoton level, and we found out that if you ate too much cooked food, it'd drop you down, or maybe if you eat any, it'll drop you down, then that's the law. You can't do it. Likewise, we know alcohol is a poison, the worst of all drugs. It destroys every cell in your body. It goes everywhere. So here we have two shows, Bar Rescue, Kitchen Nightmares. These owners are a mess. They don't know how to run a business. And many times, in order to fix the business, that has a lot of bad systems that aren't being used right, but the owners themselves are having problems. And that's where the show gets halfway decent, because they do a pretty decent job of helping comfort these people when they've lost a loved one, for example. I've been seeing that a lot recently. Can't begin to tell you how many people I saw, the owner lost their mother, their sister, their father, sometimes three of them within a couple months of cancer. And what's so ironic about this is here you are rescuing the businesses that are causing the cancer. And don't get me started on the cancer industry or the medical industry in itself. Please watch my videos on Healing Secrets Revealed and Medicine is the Ultimate Tool of Control if you haven't yet. They're in the description of almost every video I do. It's important for us to understand that our so-called experts are not our experts. And we're so clueless as to what's going on. The average person who's watching Bar Rescue and Kitchen Nightmares has no idea they shouldn't eat cooked food, and that you don't want to help these businesses be successful. It was kind of funny. They call themselves, we're in the hospitality business. Really, you want to call restaurants and bars, you're in the hospitality business. How ironic is that? Hey, come on in. Let us poison you. Let us give you food that will make you sick. Let's give you other type of poisons. Hey, go to the doctor. What are they going to give you? Poisons. Remember, double speak. War is peace. Poisons are health. Doesn't work. This knowledge goes back so far, it's what we had forever. Remember, we put the human existence on a timeline, 100 yards. We didn't start eating those grains until the 6-inch line. We didn't start cooking our food consistently until the 1-yard line. 99% of our existence was simple. We didn't have all these problems. The fall of mankind happened around the 1-yard line, and that's when we started consistently killing our food, altering our food, killing the biophotons, destroying one of our senses. Now we're senseless. That creates the dark side of our behavior. That allows us to hunt animals that we could never hunt before because we're not equipped to eat them. But we can set the forest on fire and run them off the cliff and go down there and eat them. And that darkened the dark side of our behavior. Now we kept moving along. So we started eating animals consistently on the 2.5-foot line. We started way back around the 17, but not consistently because we hadn't mastered fire yet. Our brains didn't even grow or double in size until around the 67-yard line. So 2/3 into our existence, our brains weren't very big. Then they almost doubled in size. Went from around a little less than 400 cc's to around 800 cc's. And that allowed us to do things we had never done before, but it took us a long time before we did anything with that. See, if we go down that football field, 2/3 into it on the 67-yard line, so when our brains doubled in size, we went another 20 yards, another 1.2 million years on this football field down to about the 87-yard line. That's when we mastered fire. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, mastering fire is what made our brains double size. No, it doesn't fit the timeline, my friends. The people pushing that are going to say, oh, yeah, we mastered fire way back here, but we can't prove it. No one accepts what you say as proof. The only proof we have goes back to the 87-yard line. And what's interesting is it took us another 12 years before we started cooking food consistently with it. So here we are on the 87-yard line about 40,000 generations ago. We went 37,000 generations all the way down to the 1-yard line, 99% into our existence, 60,000 years ago. We started finally cooking our food consistently. Allowed us to do things with food we never could before. We started eating food we weren't biologically adapted to eat. Continued to make more mistakes. Got to correct that first mistake, folks. When we can embrace that, that's the secret to immortality, don't you see? Because for 99% of our existence, we were raw vegans. That's immortality. That's when you put things on a perspective where we were on 1-yard line 60,000 years ago. How do you become immortal? Get past the cooking. Teach everybody the ramifications from killing your food. And it's going to be hard for the average person to wrap their brain around. Because our reason is usually the servant to our desires. There's pretty much only one way, I think, that we can get to enough of us to wake them up. Now, some people are going to be receptive to, okay, I'll eat more fruits and vegetables. But the majority of us aren't. They got to do something that will get their attention. They got to test an idea as time has come. They got to take a solid food vacation for the appropriate length of time. They got to take the first step to climb these stairs to get up to this top floor of paradise, where we don't have problems within our control. On the first floor, in Tolstoy's analogy, where we live in evil, we've got all these problems, and they all stem from cooking our food. Now, a lot of you are quick to dismiss this, but have you tried to push the pencil to it and go back and go back and go back? I have. I've done it back as far as I can go, and it doesn't go back any further to cooking. So stop being a cookie. I can guarantee you, when you stop being a cookie, ow, you're in for a treat.